Hello, everybody. So we're going to continue our discussion with creating histograms. And in this video, we're going to cover how do you create a histogram when there's a gap in the data. So let's begin by opening up our Chapter 1 Excel examples spreadsheet that we were using in the last video. And we're going to select the tab at the bottom that says Example 1.4 Histogram 2. Now, I should note that the histogram that we're about to create is the same histogram in the textbook for example 1.5, which is on pages 25 through 26. In the last video, we created a histogram with a class width of 5 or bin width of 5. In this video, we're going to create a histogram with a class width or bin width of 4. So we're always going to start by highlighting all of the data and sorting it numerically. So select all the data, then right click, go to sort, then custom sort. And it's going to say column. We're going to select %, and it defaults from smallest to largest, which is what we want. So now all the data is sorted. And as I said earlier, anytime that you're going to create a histogram, you need two columns of information. The column of the individuals, which is the states, and the column of the data values, which is the %. So we're first going to create the pivot table by highlighting the individuals and values, or the state and % columns. Then we're going to go to Insert at the top, and then click Pivot Table. Now it says, choose the data that you want to analyze. Well, whatever we highlighted is pre-inputted into the table range box. And then it says, choose where to place the pivot table. Now don't select new worksheet, select existing worksheet. Now I have to click somewhere in the spreadsheet for the table to start at. So I'm just going to click this empty box that says E2. And then it pre-puts all that into the table range here. So click OK. And now we have a blank pivot table, but a box pops up on the right-hand side. Now, the % I'm going to drag and drop to the rows, and the state I'm going to drag and drop to the values. Now, as I said earlier, your data values always get put into the rows box. Your individuals, which is the state here, get put into the values box. And it gives us a table to work off of. So what we're going to do here is format the table. That way we have our classes or our bins with a class width or bin width of size 4. So I'm going to click in the first row, then right click and go to Group. And starting at, we're going to input 60, which is what we decided in the textbook. And then where it says by, we're going to put the class width or bin width, which is a size 4. Okay, now before creating the histogram, you want to make sure that none of the classes or bins in the first column are skipped over. So let's take a look. 60 to 64, then 68 to 72. Uh-oh. We're in trouble here because it skipped the class or the bin going from 64 to 68. So we need to remedy that. So here's how we remedy that. You're going to highlight and select all the data, excluding the first row here and the bottom row here. Then you're going to right click and go down to Pivot Table Options. Make sure that the box that says empty cells as is checked off and that the number 0 is typed in. Because essentially what's happening is Excel is skipping over anything with a 0 count. So I'm going to click OK after that. And notice nothing changed because there's still more steps. Then within the highlighted data, we're going to right click again and go down this time to Field Settings. Now in field settings, we're going to check off the box here that says show items with no data, and then click OK. And so now it fills in the 0 entries in the table. Specifically, 64 to 68 now has a count of 0 showing. However, notice that we get these 2 extras that we don't want. Less than 60 and greater than 92 are at 0. We don't want those in the table specifically because we have nothing that's greater than 92 and nothing that's less than 60. So to get rid of it, this is how we go about it. Click on this down arrow next to the row labels and uncheck the less than box and uncheck the greater than box. Then close this. And so now we have the complete pivot table. So next is to create the histogram. Highlight all of the data, including the first row here at the top, but excluding this bottom row that says grand total. Go to Insert and click on the picture that says column, and then click the first graph right under 2D column. And again, this just gives us a starting point for the histogram. We need to edit this to make sure that the histogram is formatted with all the bars touching. And again, we have to do this in a very specific order. So first, we're going to click on design at the top, and we're going to select one of the designs here that's outlined. Click the down arrow to show all the options. And as I said earlier, you're not going to want to select style 4 or style 5 here. And the reason is it does show you the counts, but it doesn't show you the y-axis. You need to have a y-axis whenever you're doing a histogram. I specifically like style 6, so I'm going to click on that. Next, what we want to do is add an x-axis and y-axis label. Go over to quick layout here, and specifically you're going to select layout 7. And this is a must. You have to select layout 7. And then it gives us a blank axis title that we can edit. So if I double click here and highlight all the data, I can type over it, and I'm going to put, for the x-axis label, % of on-time high school graduates. And then do the same thing for the y-axis title, highlight all the data, or sorry, highlight the title, and I'm going to type in number of states. And then in parentheses, I'm going to put frequency. Okay. So once we have those entered in, we need to go ahead and edit the bars so they're touching. Double click on one of the bars, and on the side, you're going to see this tab, or on the right-hand side, you're going to see this tab open up that says Format Data Series. Click on the series option, which is the bars touching, and where it says Gap Width, you're going to shrink that down to size 0. And so now all the bars are touching. Now, when you take a look at this, the font is way too small. So let me just click on one of the edges just to make sure that the entire graph is highlighted. Go to Home, and then we're going to change the font. I'm going to change it to size 14. And then we're going to have to stretch it out after that. That way everything's not so scrunched up. Now this last step is optional. You don't have to do it. But if you double click on one of the bars, then right click, you can go down to add data labels. And it's going to put the frequency for each class right above the bars, indicating the height of the bars. And then notice here we see the gap between 64 to 68 with a count of 0, which is indicating to us that there's one state with the graduation rate between 60 to 64%, and that's going to be considered an outlier. Outliers essentially occur whenever it's far away from the general trend, and it's usually indicated by a gap. Now, sadly, that's not a state. It's the District of Columbia, which is 61.4%. You think it would be higher in our nation's capital, but apparently it isn't. So at any rate, this is how we go ahead and create the histogram. Now, there's one more thing that I want to discuss, which is how to find the center of the data. In other words, how do I find the middle value for the data set? Okay, well, in an empty box, I'm going to type in center, And below that, to the left, I'm going to do two calculations. I'm going to do one calculation for the center with the outlier, and then another without the outlier. Okay. Now, in the box next to with outlier, I'm going to double click in that and type in equals, and then in all capital letters, median, MEDIAN, then in open parentheses. And then we have to input where the data starts. Well, the data starts at the B2 column, or the B2 entry rather. So in here, I'm going to type capital B, then the number 2, then colon, and then where does the data end? Well, if we scroll down, we see the data ends at the B52 entry. So after B2, I'm going to type capital B52. So equals median, open parentheses, capital B2 colon B52. So it's going to find the middle values for us. And we see that that is a graduation rate of 83.9%. And then we're going to do this again without the outlier. So double click in the box below, and we're going to type in equals and then median in all capital letters, MEDIAN. But this time we're going to start it at B3 because we're going to exclude the outlier for the District of Columbia. So median, capital B, then the number 3, so that's where it's going to start, then colon to wherever it ends, which is the B52 entry. Then close the parentheses and put equals. And notice that without the outlier, the median graduation rate is 84.2%. Okay, so that's it for this video. What I would like for you to do is the following. I would like for you to click over this and delete the graph. Highlight your pivot table, delete that, and then go ahead and recreate the pivot table and the histogram. And in addition, afterwards, I would like for you to calculate the center. To delete this, highlight over the information, and we can't simply hit the delete button here. We have to right click over this and then select clear contents. So go ahead and run through this. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask me after class on Monday or during office hours. All right, guys, thank you very much, and I will talk to you soon.